approved installment credit with John Deere Financial. Some restrictions apply. See dealer for details.
All right, 6 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Tuesday morning. I was happy to, even though we live in Florida where it's sunny, I was happy to learn that I really don't have to cut my grass all winter long.
Yeah.
Right, it's good news because I hate cutting the grass. So, but anyway, so my neighbor was saying you have to drain the gas out of your lawnmower, and I said, really? Why would I need to do that?
Yeah.
He said because the gasoline has ethanol mixed into it, and if it was just pure gasoline, it would sit all winter long, no problem. But you have to drain it out because the ethanol is going to cause a problem if it's not circulating all the time or something of that. Now, I don't know. I'm not an expert on anything, but
never heard that.
But anyway, so and we had a caller one time who said that he had a small fire under his hood, and thank goodness he caught it in time. And he attributed it to the fact that some of the rubber hoses underneath his hood and his engine were deteriorating because of the alcohol that's mixed in with some of our gasoline. That whole idea of putting alcohol into gasoline is what we're going to talk about right now. The blend of 10% alcohol was mandated by the RFS, I'm reading here now, the Federal Renewable Fuel Standard. And yesterday, according to this, the Environmental Protection Agency released the final renewable volume obligations, also known as RVOs, for last year and this year. And so we have on the phone Chet Thompson to talk to us about this. He's the president of American Fuel and Petrochemical Manufacturers. We're talking about the negative impacts of the Federal Renewable Fuel Standard on the environment and our wallets and why Congress has to step in. This sounds interesting, even somebody who's just worried about his lawnmower. Chet, thank you for being on the air with us today.
Thanks for having me, Larry and Robin. Much appreciated.
Where are you? Where are you calling from?
Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Where is the source of most of these problems.
Right. All right, so now, but we call it a problem, and we're always quick to say those stupid politicians, but this had good intent, but it turns out it's unintended consequences, correct?
That's correct. So let me just ground everyone what the RFS is, and that is first and foremost, it's a federal mandate. And so it's a federal mandate on how much ethanol must be blended into our nation's fuel supply. So when your listeners are at the pump filling up their car or their boats or their tractors, whatever it may be, when you see that sticker on the pump that says E10, that means that up to 10% of each gallon that you pump, up to 10% of that is ethanol. And that's there largely because of this a federal mandate that was first adopted in 2005.
Was it adopted for environmental reasons or because of a fuel shortage problem?
Two reasons that underpin the original enactment. One was the fear that in the U.S. we were running out of oil and natural gas, and we needed to be less dependent on foreign oil. And so the thought was, if we mandate more ethanol, we'll create more domestic sources of energy, and that would be good. It would, and who can argue with that?
Yeah, right.
And the second was just that perhaps using more ethanol would be good for the environment. And again, the problem is, Larry, is that both of these premises, have proven to be wrong.
Now,
in the case of the, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask you the question. The thing we suppose as the lay people is that the fire under the hood of the car I was talking about, and the problem that I might have with my lawnmower, is because of that alcohol. Is that correct?
Well, there is research that suggests that higher ethanol fuels is more corrosive, and that it can corrode away at some of the hoses and pipes, and it can lead to engine damage.
Chet, why?
Now, go ahead.
Rick, why, if it's a mandate, why am I able to go to some gas stations that have dedicated pumps that have no alcohol in the gasoline?
Well, there's nothing in the law that prohibits folks from selling what we call E0, pure gasoline.
Okay.
The problem is it just becomes harder and harder to come by because, so let's talk about what EPA just did yesterday. It's now mandating that 18 billion, with a B, billion gallons of ethanol be blended into the fuel supply. That means it just limits how much gasoline is left with that's pure gasoline. And it's a real problem because what we see all over the country is that there is a real strong demand for pure gasoline from particularly boaters and motorcyclists and
motorcycles is what I heard. I heard that it's very hard to,
the strongest in these parts, because we have lots of boat users in this area, and the boat industry gets hit really hard, and you can correlate more engine breakdowns with higher levels of ethanol being mandated.
Okay, so the decisions were made yesterday. It sounds like there's not a whole lot we can do, or can we still write our congressman?
Well, that's the thing. So yesterday, EPA did its action, but the mandate was created by Congress, and so the only entity left that can fix it, is Congress. And we think the time has come for Congress to repeal this program. Recently there is bipartisan support for a repeal. No doubt it's a tough one because, frankly, there are lots of very powerful, corn interests here in town, and the corn industry no doubt benefits from this program.
Oh, okay, so there's a money issue here. So the corn people want this to stay in place because, and I was thinking the farmers would want this removed because it was ruining their tractors.
No, well, it depends. You have the corn, farmers, those that are taking their corn crops and making it into fuel. Of course, they support this mandate. But you have lots of other farmers, those that raise livestock and poultry and cows and dairy farmers. Of course, they are really hurt by this program because the feed prices have gone up. If you go to your grocery store, the price of eggs and bacon and ham and everything else is higher today because of this program. So if you go there's a website out there called smarterfuelfuture.org. It actually shows you the strange bedfellows created by this program. You have environmentalists and farmers and boaters and motorcyclists, you name it, have band together to say that this program is detrimental to consumers in the country and needs to be repealed.
Okay.
And so what your listeners can do is call their congressmen and women and say it's time to take action.
So is it true that the United States has a surplus of oil and natural gas and that we don't really need to depend on oil from overseas? And is that where some of the problem is too?
Well, Robin, we still import some crude oil to be sure, but our levels, our domestic supply of crude oil is higher today than it has been in decades. With this what we call the unconventional oil play, with new technologies to get at hard to reach oil, we have more oil production in this country than we have for decades, which is why you're seeing gas prices at the pump the lowest that in any recent time.
Yeah.
Because we do have an ever increasing supply of domestic oil. It's a really good news story.
I went to the website for the listeners just to repeat it. It's smarterfuelfuture.org. The big headline on that page is a video you can play. It says, "Inconvenient fact. Science concludes ethanol mandates harm environment, worsen emissions." Wow, that's exactly the opposite of what they thought it was going to do. So
that's right, and I think again that's one of the inconvenient truths, and I think even EPA itself has acknowledged that there potentially are environmental harms that are greater than what they were trying to solve related to this program.
Well, Chet, thank you so much for being on the air with us. I know it's a short visit, but for the listeners, really the bottom line is go to the website, smarterfuelfuture.org. Chet Thompson, thank you again.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
All right, we'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. For this Tuesday, intervals of clouds and sunshine with a passing shower, the high 81 to 85. Partly to mostly cloudy Tuesday night, low 66 to 70. For Wednesday, mostly cloudy with a passing shower, especially in the afternoon, the high 81 to 85. And Thursday, mostly cloudy and cooler with a couple of showers, the high